Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issue number 1 of The Resurrection of Magneto, written by Al Ewing. But before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. So with that said, Storm and her Brotherhood of Mutants emerged victorious over Genesis and her forces in the civil war over Krakoa. However, the fight for mutant survival is far from over. On Earth, mutants are being hunted in greater numbers than ever before, hounded after by the anti-mutant organization Orchis. Recently, Orchis dealt a devastating blow to mutant kind at the Hellfire Gala by launching an attack that killed many mutants, including the newly elected X-Men team. They were also responsible for the capture of Cyclops, who is currently being framed for the Hellfire Gala massacre of human guests, so because of that, they succeeded in forcing a mass exile of mutant kind from Earth. Now any remaining mutants are scattered and resources strained as the X-Men continue to try to save who they can. But their problems keep mounting, especially with Xavier currently indisposed. So with that out there, Storm knows that mutant kind needs a protector, someone who can help turn the tides. Mutant kind needs Magneto, but the only problem is, Magneto is dead, having sacrificed himself in order to defeat the Eternal Uranos during the Judgment Day event. And even if the Resurrection Mutant Circuit known as the Five wasn't currently among those missing in the mass mutant exile, both Magneto and Storm have destroyed their Cerebro backups, embracing the Iraqi way of life and rejecting Krakoan resurrection. Meaning, if Storm wants to bring back Max, then she would have to go fetch him herself. So with that said, this issue opens with Max standing alone in hell. And as he stood there, with his head hanging low, he stated that he was wrong. Wrong about what? We do not know, but one can assume he is referring to not being resurrected after his death. So anyway, on the next page, we see the Queen of Krakoa jump up in bed, for all of this was a dream, a vision of Eric wishing to return. So with panic in Storm's heart, she screams out no, as she releases a surge of electricity. But luckily for her, her lover, Craig, was there to console her and remind her that she was okay. Now, when it comes to Craig, he isn't a superhero, nor a mutant, or even a king. Craig is just a human man who adopted 2 mutant children and just so happened to fall in love with a queen. So as the two lay in bed, Storm thinks to herself that those dreams are more than just her imagination. In fact, she believes those dreams are Magneto's way to call out to her from the other side. So following that, we fast forward to the Defenders base, and when we get there, we see Blue Marvel talking to Taya about the connection between Orchis and Eternity's mysterious enemy, the Dominion, and how they were warned about it. But as they were talking, Storm arrived on the scene in hopes of asking a favor. Now at first Taya was ready to jump right into battle with the Queen, but luckily for the situation, Blue Marvel was there to calm his friend. Because from his point of view, Storm is an ally in the fight against Orchis, and if they want any hope of taking them down, then they all must stand and fight together. So with that disaster nearly avoided, Storm goes on to tell him exactly what she needs. She tells him that she half expected him to refuse her, to tell her that what she wanted was against the rules, against nature, against the last wishes of a dying man. But instead, he considered what she said for a moment, and then nodded as if she asked him to fix a shelf. He then told her that it can be done and he can do it, but there are a few factors they must consider. And at that moment, Storm was reminded of Forge and knew exactly what Monica Rambeau saw in Adam and why she left. So with that established, he led her to the portal room to help her get to where she needed to be, and in this case, she wanted to go to the waiting room. Now the waiting room was the pocket world created by Wanda Maximoff that sat in the space between life and death and used to house mutant souls after they passed on. Now anyway, with the portal before her, Storm tells Blue Marvel that he seemed a little too nonchalant about the whole thing. In which he replies by saying, Doctor Strange and Reed Richard would have told her that hacking the afterlife is impossible. But when it comes to himself, the impossible is where he starts. And besides, all the information he needs is bio-encoded in the Krakoan seed. Now this seed was given to her by Apocalypse to act as a door from Krakoa to the new island. But when she says that to Adam, he just nods politely. Now to Storm this was slightly offensive, because to Storm each word ringed with history, blood, and sacrifice, but to Adam, they were just words because he wasn't there during the war for Krakoa. But all that didn't really matter because he was there now. So with that said, the portal door begins to open and something like moonlight washed over her. So as Adam starts to check the surface readings, Storm pays no attention to him, for she already knows what they're saying. Because to her, she was standing on the edge of a rooftop and below was a vast ocean, and all that was left to do was to cast aside the idea of safety and leap. So as she dived into the gate, Storm was met by none other than Tarn the Uncaring, welcoming her to the afterlife. Now this is extremely odd given their history, but much like every mutant, he is allowed a part of the sanctuary. But see, that wasn't the thing that unnerved her. What unnerved her was why he was waiting there alone. In which the clever Tarn replies by saying, should the afterlife paradise be crowded and everyone's souls be there on call? Or maybe it really is as empty as it looks. So with that said, our host points out several signs and symbols that serve as exits and entrances, because how could this place be paradise if people couldn't leave? Now this is a big deal, because basically, Tarn is saying that everyone could leave and explore as they please. So with that said, Tarn turns to Storm to ask her a question in turn, because up in the waiting room, everybody in the queue heard that resurrection had come to an end, and no one knows exactly when the queue will ever resume. Now with that out there, this leads to Tarn's question, which is why exactly would Storm throw herself into death? And which she responds by telling him the truth, by telling him that she is there to resurrect the person who killed him, that she is there to resurrect Magneto. Now, as you may have guessed, this was not what Tarn wanted to hear, because he tells her she must understand why he'll take that as a direct insult. So with this insult, here, in the well beyond the worlds, in the very seat of magic, he has always seen himself as the genomic mage. And in a strange turn of events, Tarn transforms into a gigantic creature of power and rage. And just like that, the fight was on, and Tarn was unleashing blows upon blows in Storm's direction while giving a speech about how he wished to consume her, and what would become of her soul when she is gone. But while he was going on and on, Storm asked a simple question, and that was, then why not make it easier and twist her genetics to his will, as he did before? In which he attempts to lie by saying the only reason why he doesn't do it is because he desires to prolong her agony. But that is when she corrects him by saying, he said himself that this is a place of magic and she has learned enough about magic to know that magic is a thing of symbols and metaphors as well as signifiers of power. And in this place, they are their own signifiers here, so that means she is facing him as he truly sees himself. And just like she proved in the Circle Perilous, all his genomic majesty cannot change himself in a way that matters. Because at the end of the day, she was victorious. So with that said, Tarn goes on to give yet another speech. He tells her that he made his choice long ago, and he made it in the name of his art. For all mutants are his canvas, and this is his true self, vast, ever-expanding, ever-evolving, ever-reaching to new and greater heights. And what she calls a monstrosity, he calls the new frontier of being. So when he returns to the living world, he will journey further yet. So with that epic speech delivered, Tarn goes on to ask Storm what is she to him, in which she replies by saying, he keeps talking as if he can block her from seeing what's under his feet, because she is a witch of the weather, and he is standing upon the clouds. And just like that, a gigantic thunderbolt strikes Tarn, and in a blink of an eye, Tarn was no more. So following the disappearance of Tarn, Storm is visited by her ancestor, a sheikh, the magic maker of ancient Egypt. And the reason why she is here is to shed some light on everything and guide her to where she needs to be. So with that out there, a sheikh asked why Storm traveled to the afterlife, in which Storm hesitates to tell her because she thinks to herself that it's foolish to throw herself into the unknown only on the strength of a dream. But to Storm's surprise, a sheikh was able to read her mind and reply with, dreams are vital because they are messages from gods, and they carry meanings beyond meanings, and at times are even binding. So with everything out and in the open, Storms continued to tell her ancestor that she dreamed of a person named Max, and he was standing on a strange shore, readying himself to enter a ruined city, and as for his face, it was turned away but in torment. And to Storm it felt like more than just a dream but rather a distress call. And following that, Storm also brings up how she remembers 5 helmets at Max's feet, even though she has no idea what it means. So with that little bit of information, her ancestor tells her that 5 is a number of magic, but it also has other associations. The 5th sphere is the sphere of judgment, and in the 5th sphere of judgment, there is no mercy. So because of that, a sheikh must ask her if this man was truly her friend. So, following that question, Storm stood there for a moment and thought to herself about their long shared history. And when she was done, she told her ancestor that he was many things to many people, and he was also owed many things as well, and because of his suffering, she owes it to him to at least try. So with that question answered, Storm then asks her ancestor what happened to all the mutant souls that were here waiting. Now, unfortunately, a sheikh tells her that she has no idea what happened to them, but she knows which path they chose. And the path that a sheikh points to is a burning beacon lighting the way to something more permanent than a paradise built to wait. Now this icon bared the face of death, which sparked Storm to assume that they are all gone forever with no hope of returning. But this is when a sheikh corrects her by saying there is always hope, because much like all the lost mutants, she has crossed one threshold already, which proves death is not the barrier many believe it to be. Because if Storm wanted to, she could still return from this. And with those words, a sheikh shows Storm her body lying lifeless on the ground with Blue Marvel and his friend trying to revive her. But see, that changed nothing for Storm, because she came here to help her friend and comrade find the mercy that is being withheld from him, and if he wishes, she will also bring him back to join the fight alongside every dead mutant that is lost. So with that declaration, a sheikh lets Storm know that there are things even a goddess must bow to, but a sheikh also recognized that Storm is also the avatar of life and she was allowed here for a reason. And one way or another the balance will not hold. And darkness must be fought in many ways on many levels, which includes above and below. And as for Storm's friend, Max, he holds the key to accomplishing it. So with that statement, her ancestor led her to a tower that Storm must climb, for that was the path that Max chosen. So as Storm began to climb, a sheikh snapped her fingers, and just like that, Storm started to fall the same way Max fell. All the way outside of space and time to another place, to a place that is home to the Dominions. And when I say Dominions, I'm referring to many different ones ranging in size and power. So as Storm continues to fall, she sparks up a conversation with the Dominion next to her, and through their interaction, Storm finds out that she is in a location the Dominions describe as overspace. Now overspace is a junction to everywhere all at the same time. In fact, one Dominion with a crown in the middle states that various Dominions exist, and they all work, consume, grow, and start the cycle anew. But there is also one among them that threatens to achieve infinite power with human thoughts. Now this Dominion threat potential is infinite with a duration that could last forever. Now this Dominion is so dangerous that even the Beyonders and Omegas are afraid because, unlike a Dominion, the Beyonders are linear. So in hopes of containment and stopping its growth, the Beyonders have attempted a multiversal reboot, but not even that was able to seal the deal, for the Dominion in question is the Ace of Crowns, fifth business, or better known as Enigma. So with that surge of knowledge entering her mind, Storm becomes keenly aware of the intelligence's hunger, and with each new drop of knowledge Storm receives, she is turned into a sweeter meal for them. So with each bit of information being fed to her, Storm prays that the last question she asks wouldn't be the one that makes her a suitable meal. And that question was, where is Max's soul? Now, the Dominion reveals to her that it came across him and dissected him, but through its examination, it found him not useful enough, so it sent him on his way. But when it comes to Storm, the Dominion finds her of greater interest, worthy and useful. So as it approaches her to consume her, Storm lets out a furious lightning strike directly at the heart of the Dominion, and strangely enough it registers her attack as painful. So painful that the Dominion recalculated and sent her crashing to where she needed to go rather than consume her. But while this is going on, Storm had an inner dialogue that I found pretty interesting, and in this dialogue she asked if Eric went through the same thing, this pain of knowledge, and was his life flipped through like a book. And in said book, Storm discovered many different layers to herself, one hidden beneath the next, but at her core Storm had no idea what she was or what she was allowed to be. Because when she heard the news of the fall of Krakoa, all she managed to do was harden herself to the news, because she couldn't allow the news to touch her, or else she would break. But now in the afterlife, she found herself in a place where pretenses and protections are torn away. Because she came here for Max, her friend, because he was in pain. But unfortunately, this is not a place anyone could simply visit. Because before her was the broken city of judgment. And whatever this place had done to Magneto will be worse for Storm. And on the final page, we see an eyeless Max crawling on a floor made of lava in tremendous pain. So with that said, this first issue of the resurrection of Magneto comes to an end. And I have to say, I did not see this story taking this route, and I must admit that I am here for it. And one of the things I hope L. Ewing does in this comic is dive into Storm's magical side and allow her to explore that part of her bloodline. And as for the comic itself, I found it as a great kickoff point to this story, and I love how both Storm and Max have to face judgment for their past actions in order to be brought back from the grave. So with that out there, if you want to stay in the loop about any individual storyline, then how about you hop over to the playlist section down below or in the link cards above to get all caught up on the X-Men runs. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next review.